Hi, it's a brand new day of learning. I am dear Samisi Blanco, and I am glad and excited to be with you today to discover new lessons through video presentation. So, set your mind and ready your heart as we learn about structures. As you go through of learning about structure, you are going to learn about phrases, clauses, clauses containing complementations, testing structure, syntactic relations, and bare phrase structure. In this chapter, we introduce the notion of syntactic structure, looking at how words are combined together to form the phrases and sentences. We shall see that phrases and sentences are built up by a series of merge operations, each of which is combines a pair of constituents together to form a larger constituent. We show how the resulting structure can be represented in terms of a tree diagram, and we look at how ways of testing the structure of phrases and sentences. And now, let's learn about phrases. To put our discussion on a concrete footing, let's consider of how elementary two-word phrase such as that produced by speaker B in the following mini dialogue is formed. The first dialogue, Speaker A, what are you trying to do? Speaker B, help you. As Speaker B utterance illustrates, the simplest way of forming a phrase is by merging. It is a technical term meaning combining. So two words together, for example, by merging the word help with the word you, we form the phrase help you. The resulting phrase help you seems to have verb-like rather than noun-like properties, as we see from the fact that it can occupy the same range of positions as the simple verb help, and hence occur after the infinitive particle to. In the second dialogue, we are trying to help. In the speaker B, we are trying to help you. By contrast, the phrase help you cannot occupy the kind of position occupied by a pronoun such as you, as we see in the third dialogue. According to speaker A, you are very difficult. According to speaker B, help you are very difficult. So, it seems clear that the grammatical properties of a phrase like help you are determined by the verb helped and not by the pronoun you. Much the same can be said about the semantic properties of the expression. Since the phrase help you describes an act of help and not a kind of person. Using the appropriate technical terminology, as we can say that the verb help is the head of the phrase help you, and hence that help you is a verb phrase, and on the same way as we abbreviate category labels like verb to V, so too we can abbreviate the category label verb phrase to VP. If we use the traditional labeled bracketing technique to represent the category of the overall verb phrase help you and of its constituent words, the verb help and the pronoun you. So, we can represent the structure of the resulting phrase as in the verb help and the pronoun you. An alternative way of representing the structure of phrases like help you is via a labeled tree diagram. So what the tree diagram tells us that the overall phrase help you is a verb phrase, and that is two constituents are the verb help and the pronoun you. The verb help is the head of the overall phrase. Introducing another technical term at this point, we can say that conversely, the verb phrase help you is a projection of the verb help. It is a larger expression formed by merging the head verb help with another constituent of an appropriate kind. In this case, the constituent which is merged with the verb help is the pronoun you, which has the grammatical function of being the complement or direct object of the verb help. The head of a projection or phrase determines the grammatical properties of its complement. In this case, since help is a transitive verb, it requires a complement with accusative case, such as pronoun like me, us, him, or them. And this requirement is satisfied here since you can function as an accusative form. The tree diagram as shown is entirely equivalent to the labeled bracketing as shown here, in the sense that the two provide us with precisely the same information about the structure of the phrase help you. The differences between a labeled bracketing and a tree diagram are purely notational. Each category is represented by a single labeled node in a tree diagram, especially by a point in a tree which carries a category label like verb phrase, verb, or pronoun, but by a pair of labeled brackets in a labeled bracketing. In each case, a category labels like verb and pronoun should be thought of as a shorthand abbreviations for the set of grammatical features which characterize the overall grammatical properties of the relevant words, such as the pronoun you used and carries a set of features including second person and accusative case, though these features are not shown by the category label pronoun. Since our goal in developing a theory of universal grammar is to uncover general structure principles governing the formation of phrases and sentences, let's generalize our discussion in tree diagram at this point and hypothesis that all phrases are formed in essentially the same way as the phrase in tree diagram, namely by a binary merger operation which combines two constituents together to form a larger constituent. In the case, the resulting phrase help you is formed by merging two words. However, not all phrases contain only two words. As we see, if we look at the structure of the phrase produced by speaker B in dialogue 6, speaker A, what was your intention? Speaker B, to help you. The phrase in dialogue 6 of speaker B is formed by merging the infinitive particle to with the verb phrase help you. What's the head of the resulting phrase to help you? A reasonable guess would be that the head is the infinitival tense particle, so that resulting expression to help you is an infinitival tense phrase. This being so, we'd expect to find that TPs containing infinitival to have a different substitution or distribution from verb phrase, and this is indeed the case as we see. Dialogue 7, speaker A, they ought to help you. Speaker B, they ought help you. In dialogue 8, speaker A, they should help you. Speaker B, they should to help you. If we assume that help you is a verb phrase, whereas to help you is a tense phrase. We can account for the contrast in Dialogue 7 and Dialogue 8 by saying that of is the kind of word which selects an infinitival tense phrase as its complement, whereas should is the kind of word which selects an infinitival verb phrase as its complement. Implicit in this claim is the assumption that different words like of and should have different selectional properties which determine the range of complements they permit. The infinitive phrase to help you is formed by merging the infinitive particle to with the verb phrase help you. If infinitival to is a non-finite tense particle, and if to is the head of the phrase to help you, the structure formed by merging the infinitival T particle to with the verb phrase help you, as you can see in the tree diagram, will be the tense phrase. As you can see in the tree diagram, the head of the resulting infinitival tense projection to help you is the infinitive particle to, and the verb phrase help you is the complement of to. Conversely, to help you is a projection of to. In keeping with our earlier observation that the head of a projection phrase determines grammatical properties of its complement, the non-finite tense particle to requires an infinitival complement. More specifically, to requires the head of verb of its verb phrase complement to be a verb in its infinitive form, so that we require the infinitive form verb after infinitival to. Refining our earlier observation somewhat, we can therefore say that the head of a projection or phrase determines grammatical properties of the head word of its complement. More generally, our discussion here suggests that we can build up phrases by a series of binary merger operations, which combine successive pairs of constituents to form ever larger structures. For example, by merging the infinitive phrase to help you with the verb trying, we can form the even larger phrase trying to help you, produced by Speaker B in Dialogue 10. Dialogue 10, Speaker A, what are you doing? Speaker B, trying to help you. The resulting phrase, trying to help you, is headed by the verb trying, as we can see from the fact that it can be used after words like be, start, or keep, which select a complement headed by a verb in the ing form. This being so, the italicized phrase produced by Speaker B in Dialogue 10 is a verb phrase, which has the structure of the tree diagram. As you can see in the tree diagram, it tells us that the overall expression trying to help you is a verb phrase. Its head is the verb trying, and the complement of trying is the tense phrase, infinitival phrase, or tense phrase to help you. Conversely, the verb phrase trying to help you is a projection of the verb trying. An interesting property of syntactic structure illustrates in that of recursion. That is the property of allowing a given structure to contain more than one instance of a given category, which means, in this case, more than one verb phrase, one headed by the verb help and the other headed by the verb trying. If we look closely at the relevant structures, we can see that they obey the following two constituent structures principles. The first one is the headedness principle, which means every syntactic structure is a projection of a head word. The second one is the binarity principle, which means that every syntactic structure is binary branching. The term syntactic structure is used here as an informal way of denoting an expression which contains two or more constituents. For example, the structure obeys the headedness principle, in that the verb phrase help you is headed by the verb help. The tense phrase to help you is headed by the tense to, and the verb phrase trying to help you is headed by the verb trying. Likewise, it obeys the binarity principle, in that the verb phrase help you branches into immediate constituents, in the sense that it has two constituents immediately beneath it, namely the verb help and the pronoun you. The tense phrase to help you branches into two immediate constituents, the non-finite tense particle t to the verb phrase help you, and the verb phrase trying to help you likewise branches in two immediate constituents, the verb trying and the tense phrase to help you. Having considered how phrases are formed, let's now turn to look at how clauses and sentences are formed. By way of illustration, suppose that speaker B had used the simple single clause sentence, italicized in dialogue 14 above, to reply to speaker A, rather than the phrase used by the speaker B in dialogue 10, which is trying to help you. Dialogue 14 states the speaker A, what are you doing? Speaker B, we are trying to help you. What's the structure of the italicized clause produced by speaker B in dialogue 14? In the 1960s, clauses were generally taken to belong to the category S, which means sentence or clauses, and in the sentence produced by speaker B in dialogue 14 would have been taken to have a structure along the following lines and the tree diagram above. However, a structure such as the tree diagram above violates the two constituent structure principles. More particularly, the sentence analysis of clauses in tree diagram above violates the headedness principle. In that sentence, we are trying to help you is a structure which has no head of any kind. Likewise, the sentence analysis in tree diagram above also violates the binarity principle, in that the sentence constituent we are trying to help you is not binary branching, but rather ternary branching, because it branches into three immediate constituents, namely the pronoun we, the tense are, and the verb phrase trying to help you. More specifically, let's make the unifying assumption that clauses are formed by the same binary merger operation as phrases, and accordingly, suppose that the italicized clause in dialogue 14 of speaker B is formed by merging the present tense auxiliary are with a verb phrase trying to help you, and then subsequently merging the resulting expression are trying to help as if merging are with a verb phrase trying to help you will derive the tense projection or the tense phrase are trying to help you. But this can't be right, since it would provide us with no obvious account of why speaker B's reply in the dialogue 16 above is ungrammatical. In Dialogue 16, Speaker A, what are you doing? Speaker B, are trying to help you. More specifically, let's assume that when we merge a tense auxiliary with a verb phrase, we form an intermediate projection, which we shall be denote as tense, and that only we merge the relevant T-bar constituent with a subject like we. Do we form from a maximal projection, or more informally, a complete tense phrase. Given this assumption, the italicized clause in Dialogue 14 of Speaker B, which states, we are trying to help you, will have the structure in the tree diagram of 17. Tense auxiliary like are has two projections. The first one is a smaller intermediate projection formed by merging are with its complement trying to help you to form the T-bar are trying to help you. And the second one is a larger maximal projection formed by merging the resulting tense are trying to help you with its subject we to form the tense phrase we are trying to help you. Saying the tense phrase is the maximal projection of are in Dialogue 17 means that it is the largest constituent headed by the auxiliary are. Chomsky of 1982 made a suggestion. The requirement for auxiliary to have two projections, as stated above, was taken in earlier work to be a consequence of principle of universal grammar known as extended projection principle. When we say extended projection principle, it is a finite tense constituent tense must be extended into a tense phrase projection containing a subject. The extended projection principle or EPP requirement would seem to be essentially syntactic in nature, as we can see from sentences such as the Dialogue 19. It says that Speaker A, it was alleged that he lied under oath. Speaker B, there has been no trouble. In structures of Dialogue 19, the italicized subject pronouns such as it or there seem to have no semantic content of their own, as we see from the fact that neither can be questioned by the corresponding interrogative words such as what or where, and neither can receive contrastive focus. Rather, they function as expletive pronouns, such as pronouns with no intrinsic meanings, which are used in order to satisfy the syntactic requirement for a finite auxiliary like was or has to have a subject. For example, the expletive subject it in the Dialogue 19 of Speaker A might be argued to serve the syntactic function of providing a subject for the auxiliary was to agree within person and number. Clauses containing complementizer. A question which we have not so far asked about the structure of clauses concerns what role is played by complementizers like that, for, and if, such as in Speaker B reply in Dialogue 22. In Dialogue 22, Speaker A, what are you saying? Speaker B, that we are trying to help you. Where does the complementizer that fit into the structure of the sentence? The answer suggested in work in the 1970s was that a complementizer merges with the sentence constituent. An interesting way around the headedness problem is to suppose that the head of a clausal structure introduced by a complementizer is the complementizer itself. Since this is a single word, there would be no violation of the headedness principle, requiring every syntactic structure to be a projection of a head word. Let's therefore assume that the complementizer that merges with the tense phrase "we are trying to help you" to form the complementizer phrase. I have here above the tree diagram that states that "we are trying to help you" tell us that complementizer that is the head of the overall clause that "we are trying to help you," and conversely, the overall clause is projection of that. And indeed, this is implicit in the traditional description of such structure as that clauses. The tree diagram above tell us the complement of that is the tense phrase "we are trying to help you." A further assumption which is implicit in the analysis which we have presented here is that phrases and clauses are derived. For example, the clause structure of tree diagram above involves the following sequence of merger operations. First one, the verb help is merged with the pronoun you to form the verb phrase help you. The second one, the resulting verb phrase is merged with the non-finite tense particle to form the tense phrase to help you. The third one, this tense phrase is in turn merged with the verb trying to form the verb phrase trying to help you. The fourth one, the resulting verb phrase is merged with the tense auxiliary are to form the T-bar are trying to help you. The fifth, this T-bar merged with its subjects we to form the tense phrase we are trying to help you. And sixth, the resulting tense phrase is merged with the complementizer that to form the complementizer phrase that we are trying to help you. Testing structure. Thus far, we have argued that phrases and sentences are built up by merging successive pairs of constituents into larger and larger structures, and that the resulting structure can be represented in terms of a labeled tree diagram. The tree diagram, which we use to represent syntactic structure, makes specific claims about how sentences are built up out of various different kinds of constituents. In order to make our discussion more concrete, we'll look at how we can test the structure of the following sentence. Sentence number 25, the chairman has resigned from the board. Let's suppose that the sentence number 25 is derived as follows. The determiner the is merged with the noun board to form the determiner phrase the board. This determiner phrase is merged with the preposition from to form the preposition phrase from the board. The resulting preposition phrase is merged with the verb resigned to form the verb phrase resigned from the board. This verb phrase is then merged with the auxiliary has to form the T-bar has resigned from the board. This T-bar is in turn merged with its subject specifier, the chairman, which is a determiner phrase formed by merging the determiner the with the noun chairman, thereby forming the tense phrase syntactic relations. Throughout this chapter, we have supposed that phrases and sentences are formed by a series of binary merger operations, and that the resulting structures can be represented in the form of tree diagrams. Because they mark the way that words are combined together to form phrases of various types of tree diagrams that are referred to in the relevant technical literature as phrase markers, abbreviated to P markers. Each node in the tree, especially each point in the tree which carries a category label, like noun, verb, tense, prepositional phrase, complementarial phrase, and etc. Nodes at the very bottom of the tree are called terminal nodes, and other nodes are non-terminal nodes. So for example, all the determiner, noun, tense, verb, and preposition nodes are terminal nodes. And all the determinal phrase, prepositional phrase, verb phrase, tense phrase nodes are non-terminal nodes. Bare phrase structure. In this chapter, we have used a system of category labels based on their bar notation, which has been widely adopted since the 1970s. Within this framework, a sentence like "I will survive" has the structure above. The bar notation used in the structure above, there are three different levels of projection. The first one is the heads, or also called minimal projections, like the tense auxiliary will. The second, intermediate projection, like the T-bar will survive. And third, maximal projections, like the tense phrase I will survive. If the kind of reasoning outlined here is along the right lines, it opens up the possibility of developing a theory of bare phrase structure, such as that outlined in a skeletal form in Chomsky of year 1995 and Yurijirika of year 1998. Though it should be noted that the relevant discussion in these two works is highly technical and not suitable for those who don't have some mathematical background in set theory. However, we shall continue to use traditional labeled trees and the bar notation to represent structure, category membership, and projection levels throughout the rest of this chapter. So since this remains the notation most widely used in contemporary work in syntax. This is the end of my report. Thank you for listening and have a good day.